Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, Moen, still on Cloud 9, approaching Cloud 10. To my left is Rock and Rant. Rock, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm looking forward to talking about football and not watching the news for a brief respite. Football's been the break that it is for most of us a lot of the time, but definitely this week it was good to have those moments and watch SEC tears for a moment or two before returning back to reality.
Absolutely, and I just want to bring this up. I don't know if anybody saw it. The NFL playoffs have been filled with blowouts. Clearly, the NFL selection committee did the wrong thing in leaving the Cincinnati Bengals out. The Broncos and Chargers, just blowouts and blowouts. So listen, somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to step in and make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty positive that Alabama would have won by 20 in any one of these games, at least. Like the transitive wild card should have been in play.
What is it with the NFL making sure wins and losses matter? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I didn't catch it because I watched the game last night, the prime game, but didn't listen because of just having other things going on, less about intentionally ignoring them. But I did see something, maybe somebody who watched it or can drop in the comments if you didn't see it, where people were clearly alluding that Kirk Herbstreit didn't know how the NFL playoffs work. So I don't know if that was like total sarcasm or he actually said something incorrect in his like back-to-back nights of things and he was getting clowned on. But it's hard to tell now what fact and fiction are when it comes to all of that.
Well, he probably didn't say it. His son probably said it. As
Right.
you're well aware, his son has used his Twitter account.
Sure.
And whenever he says something incorrect on commentary, that's actually him handing the microphone to his son, and his son is saying the incorrect thing.
Yes, clearly. I mean, I'm sure his son was actively tweeting the last 4 days after that announcement. His son was just with them every minute with his dog. Look, a lot of famous people have like a social media team doing stuff for them, but like I found that did you delete your account or not? Did you mean you deleted it from your phone, but you kept your account and gave it to Kirk Jr. or whichever one isn't in Ohio State or going to Michigan? If there's another one. Yeah. I also have some awesome swampland to sell you in Florida. It's really great to build skyscrapers on.
Fantastic. I will take that with a grain of salt because Oregon fans keep referring to Ohio fans as bent meth spoons, and Oregon produces more meth than the state of Ohio. So, congratulations, Oregon fans. For some reason, I got some salty Twitter replies this week. I guess Oregon is still a little upset, but hey, look, that's not all Oregon fans, just some Oregon fans. Let's say hello to some people who came in here early. If you'll notice, I've got the phones turned on tonight. The phones are on. We're going to try and take some calls. Rock and Rand will be able to hear you. He won't be able to answer because I have to go back and remember every single of the 37-step procedure I went through originally to get that to work. But hopefully we'll get that figured out shortly and we'll be able to converse with both of us. Stormy Cyclone says, congratulations to Moen and OSU for their victory. Big Ten is officially now the king of the mountain. One more game, Stormy. One more game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, now that the pain has been done that needed to be done, like I'm totally fine if a blackout happens a week from Monday because I really don't know how to, I guess I will revert back to my prime directive, which is that I despise Notre Dame more than anyone. I went down the other path for a week or two. So I'm probably reluctantly not hoping. I'm hoping Notre Dame loses. I'm not necessarily hoping your Buckeyes win. It's hard to do that as a Miami fan. You've said that before, so I'm adopting it for me now.
Let me put
you
it
said
this
that for Notre
way.
Dame.
You can stop Notre Dame from having a national championship, which they haven't had since 1988 now. Or you can stop Ohio State from getting a national championship, which they last had in 2014. Now, which is funnier?
Well, it depends. It's probably the 1988 one, but Miami does kick off against Notre Dame. So there is like a theoretical add more hype to something that will already be hyped aspect if they did win the title. But I think 1988 is more fun.
Yeah. And plus you get to serve them back-to-back losses next year with your new quarterback Carson Beck.
That would be fun.
Nathan Campbell says, hi, good to see you, Nathan Campbell. Clay Johansson says, go blue. That is not an endorsement. I am merely reading what the man typed. And congrats, Moen. Thank you, Clay. Much appreciated. Scavin, yes, says, hello, gentlemen. Go Big Red and go Bucks. Seems like most in the Big Ten are on our side. Bob Swanger, congratulations to all of the Ohio State fans. And our condolences to all of the Penn State fans. We will get into that. I'd like to get Rock and Rant's thoughts on those matchups. Mosito, congrats, Moen. Hope for one more. I hope for several more, but I would like to get this one. Would like to get this one, sir. Matt Schnuck, what do we think of the semifinals on a Thursday and Friday? I liked it better than I thought. Viewers didn't reach 18 million for the Orange Bowl. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the Cotton Bowl viewership numbers turn out tomorrow. Personally, I liked it. I think there was an NFL game on Friday night, right?
No, not on Friday night. There
Okay.
there wasn't. Yeah, it was two. There was the 2 games Friday, 3 games today, and 1 game tomorrow.
Okay. All right. I liked it. I just wish they'd move the national championship game to a Friday. I don't understand why it has to be on a Monday.
I think the only issue would be, I know why it's not Saturday or Sunday because of the playoffs next weekend, right?
Right.
I guess ESPN wants to fill their slot of Monday Night Football drawing better than they think Friday night would. That's the only thing I could think of. I would think that Friday night would be more of a party and more people would start having fun with it than having a work day the next day. But like historically, Monday's a better ratings night than a Friday is. So that's the only reason I can imagine.
We'll see. I still like Friday nights. John Dry is in the house. He says Oregon fans are quacking about nothing. Yeah, again, it's not all Oregon fans, just some Oregon fans. Stormy Cyclone has a question for you, Rock. In your opinion, what happens in the ACC and ESPN this week?
I still think that ESPN, I think they're going to try to find a Goldilocks solution. I don't think there's any way that they're getting rid of the deal. I would love if they did, because like nothing but chaos would ensue. But I think that it's most likely that they're re-upping and maybe some terms are adjusted. Maybe they cut back a few years to make it more in line with the other conferences. Maybe they add some more money. I think the ACC will continue to probably have to try to placate the top programs on the football side, maybe with additional changes to how revenue is shared. But I would definitely be surprised, like not shocked, because nothing shocks me anymore, especially after this last week. I would be shocked, stunned. I would be pretty surprised, though, if ESPN somehow completely opted out. If they opt out, that is a reflection that they have things plotted with at least some of the brands that are in the ACC.
All right. John Dry, I believe Notre Dame will soon be in the Big Ten, so it's a Big Ten championship to me. No, both teams that played in the Big Ten championship got eliminated, unfortunately. So, or fortunately, one did. Unfortunately, the other did. Expedition Greg, a Buckeye himself, says, hey, everyone. Greg, are you heading to Atlanta for that $2,000 ticket to get into the national championship game? I am not. So, bring me back a souvenir, okay? Would appreciate it. Antoine Codes, hey everyone, congrats, Moen. Not rooting for the Buckeyes, but don't care for it to Notre Dame win. Antoine Codes, what would you say if Ohio State avenged that loss for you against the Texas Longhorns? Maybe. Come on. The Big Lubbock, way too early 2025 prediction. Texas Tech wins the Big 12. Okay. Possible.
Definitely have spent enough money to do it, plus having a fairly decent season.
Yeah, it's going to be tough against BYU returning so much on defense. And Colorado, if Dion stays,
I'm curious what the other Big 12 fans think of Texas Tech's sudden spending spree. Is it a momentary blip? Are their donors finally just unleashing the power they should have been doing for years? Like, what's the take from the rest of the Big 12 fans out there?
Well, Tech's not the only one. Texas A&M, Tech. I think Baylor is probably going to jump in that market as well. SMU, big money in Texas. Big money. No whammies. It sucks and getting way too long. They need to do something to have it all wrapped up New Year's Day. And 1 week after, yeah, I agree with you. The national championship being determined on the 20th of January is a little excessive, but Expedition Greg, I wish, but I can't do to work, Moen. Okay. I forgive you. I wanted to too, but I couldn't because money. Do you all think it's going to be the All-State 12-4 with the associate sponsor Dr. Pepper? I think the Big 12 is going to do whatever the Big 12 needs to do to make more money.
Yeah, if they could do a bowl naming scheme where it was like the All-State Big 12s presented by Dr. Pepper with a side hustle by, McDonald's, they would do it.
Absolutely. They'd put logos all over the field. Matt Schnuck, he's going to take a shot at you, Rock. The last Friday national championship I remember was Miami versus Ohio State Fiesta Bowl.
But that was when it was like New Year's, right? Or that was when
I think it just happened to fall on a Friday.
On a Friday.
John Dry says I call Dr. Pepper the Baptist Coke. Reminds me of that South Park episode where they were I can't remember what I want to say now. They only drank Dr. Pepper because it was neither root beer nor soda. They were agnostics, and they didn't drink it because it was neither root beer nor soda. Dr. Pepper was invented in Waco. That's correct. Today marks 10 years ago we won the very first college football playoff national championship, beating future Big Ten member Oregon. John Dry says the Southern Baptist Coke to be more accurate. 29.1 million viewers in 2003. That was January 3rd when that took place. All right, we've got him to go for Ohio State here. Let's not keep twisting the dagger here.
Yeah, it's just like I'm, with every moment here, I'm like gonna start wishing that Alabama was in the game.
Mullen, what y'all think happened at these meetings tomorrow and this week from the ACC? They're going to work out a deal with ESPN. ESPN's not going to just give away free money. I mean, they're paying them penny on the dollars compared to what Fox is paying the Big 10, and they are paying the SEC. So they're not going to walk. And people can say, yes, the ACC had a bad bowl season this year. It happens to every conference. But still, that's cheap content. What do you think about that, Rock?
Yeah, look, if Jim Phillips actually decides it would be nice to actually adhere to his bylaws, they need to actually have like an actual vote and permission on anything that is materially like a 5% adjustment or more in the revenue side of the equation in their bylaws. Like other stuff, it's not material. So my guess is there's something, and I don't think it's just like, hey, same terms, $10 million more a year per team. Like I think it's probably something that's a little bit more multi-path wise. Like I don't know what the dollar amount would be. I don't know that it'd be massively bigger. I really don't know. But I think it would be probably a combination of things to try to pacify the the members. And we'll see what happens. And I think a second meeting could very likely be amongst the players. They've had meetings where they don't talk to the people who are suing them. That it could be as simple as that, like that kind of conversation too. Like, we'll see what happens. There's multiple things that will go on. I think it'll be interesting. My gut isn't that it's going to be explosive, but one can hope.
Yeah, I think the deal gets done. The deal gets signed within the next week. Jackson Johnson says that was the South Park episode when Kenny and his family went to an orphanage because of Kenny's family getting into a fight. That's absolutely right. Look at the camera and say I'm white trash and I'm in trouble. Although I will let you know, PBR in Ohio, not the preferred drink of those of the lower income. It's the preferred drink of hipsters. They think it's cool to drink PBR. Most of the lower income people around here drink Natty Light. You get a rack of Natty Light, you put that bad boy on your shoulder, you're going to have a good time. I don't think mercenary rosters are going to work. It will be about spending money to get the right amount of money to fill holes in your roster. Moneyball? Anyone? All right, last question before we get into the discussions of the Orange Bowl and Cotton Bowl. Question, do you think they renew with the Bulls to keep its structure or dissolve them? I think with the way the ratings for the Bulls went this season, I believe they're going to keep the Bulls. I don't know if anybody saw the report earlier this week. The NFL's ratings have declined year to year. College football ratings are actually up.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep the Bulls. It's a lot to juggle, 2 weeks back to back of this many teams in a college level with college schools. So even if they go to 16 and they have 8 home games in the first round, I think having some stability in the quarters and semis, so logistically they can handle it, makes a lot of sense. Some of these bowls have sold their soul, like the Rose Bowl hasn't, as an example. And they've already made probably as many accommodations as the Rose Bowl's ever going to, but they're going to do their damn thing on New Year's Day. So I don't know how that changes things in the future for them.
Yeah, you got to remember these cities that host these bowls, that brings them in a lot of revenue. A lot. All right, well, let's start off with the Orange Bowl, Penn State versus Notre Dame. I gave you a little bit of my thoughts on Friday, but go ahead and get your thoughts on it, Rock and Rant. You weren't there with us. What did you think of Penn State lining up against Notre Dame?
I just still James Franklin, the second half, right? Long story short, in my opinion, and I'm not somebody who sits there and I don't really think much about James Franklin. Like some people have been thinking he needs to go or anything like that. I don't think he needs to go from a perspective, but you can't ignore that record against top 5 teams. Like I understand if I was a Penn State fan, I'd probably be really pissed, whether I'd be on the rational side if he got us this far versus the irrational side, or maybe logic based of he's never going to get us further. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't have you shouldn't overthink that last interception that Allar threw. I don't know what they were thinking right there. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't really agree with the play call. Notre Dame's defense really held up, and my basic is Riley Leonard is not a really great quarterback, but he's a pretty damn excellent football player. He just gets it done. He's got the smarts. He's got whatever it is, like that thing that isn't necessarily seen on a box score. He has that, and shout out to Al Golden finally had some defense in Hard Rock Stadium. I never personally saw it, so I'll give him credit in the world. That defense was great, and whether it's really Marcus Freeman's or not, or he's executing, or how well that is, but they played great, and they did what they needed to do to win the game. I think it's interesting that Marcus's name was out there for the Bears job today. One can only hope. But yeah, look, Notre Dame won that game, and they've been on a roll. They're just not been as massive as Ohio State has been. But they have, I didn't have them coming back from Northern Illinois. I doubt most of you do, if we're being true about it. And they've clearly been at least one of the top 2 teams during this playoff. So shout out to them for winning the game.
Yeah, listen, I mentioned it on Friday. I don't agree with the game call at the end of the game, less than a minute left. You call a timeout so Notre Dame can punt to you. You have no receivers who have caught a ball all
How does
night.
that happen?
And how does that happen? Exactly.
How does that happen at Penn? I don't even – I mean, I know you have one of the best tight ends in the last decade coming out, so I get that. But still, how does it – I don't know if I've ever even seen a game that wasn't just like somebody that just runs the ball only and options all the time, not complete a pass to a wide receiver. In any game, I'm sure it's happened, but not that I'm aware of and like that I've seen personally can recall it.
I think they need to look at how they develop their wide receivers there. To be fair, they brought in Julian Fleming. Julian Fleming was a 5-star, I believe, #1 receiver coming out in his class. He didn't pan out at Ohio State. He was constantly in and out of the rotation. He went to Penn State to try and get more playing time. Did absolute squat there for him this year. I think he had like 136 yards. But yeah, you've got to look at the wide receiver development there. It's not just about recruiting. You've got to develop those guys. Ohio State does a good job of recruiting and developing wide receivers.
The problem that they have with Penn State is, you recruit that way. I don't know whether they don't have the talent in the receiving room or if it's a scheme thing. But I don't know that they're going to be after that performance, in the spring portal when some other wide receivers thinking that they don't trust the quarterback that just came into their system, replacing somebody good and like sees that in spring, like they gave it for spring, but now want to make sure they have somebody who can throw them the ball. Like, I don't know that they did the best advertisement to get some of that talent on the transfer portal level to help augment whatever they've recruited to.
Listen, I've been the first one to yell at James Franklin, but James Franklin did win them 2 playoff games. Andy Kotelnicki did come in this season. He did improve that offense, but they need to do some more overhauling on that coaching staff. There are talent groups that are just not coming along as quickly as you would like to see, and I think wide receiver is one of them. My point is, knowing you have not had a receiver catch the ball all night, why take the punt and put yourself in a situation where a mistake can happen? A mistake did happen. Trying to push the ball down the field 40 to 50 yards to get potentially a game-winning field goal.
I thought that was a very dicey play. And I'm curious, Bob Swanger, like what do you think Penn State needs to do to push it to that next step to address what we've been talking about? I would definitely like your take on it.
Yeah, I'm all for aggressiveness and going for the win, but you also have to look at the tools that you have available for you to do that. And it was clear that Penn State did not have the tools available. I mean, Tyler Warren, best tight end in college football. He should be a top 10 draft pick. Just outstanding. You can scheme him everywhere on the field. He cannot do it for you all. He can't. They double teamed him, much like Texas ended up doing to Jeremiah Smith. They lock him down in coverage. They double cover him. They triple cover him. Have a spy on the field to watch where he's at all times. I just think it was an unrealistic expectation to believe that Penn State had the offensive capabilities to drive 40 to 50 yards to get in field goal range. Bob Swanger says they may need to change the wide receiver coach. Yeah, they need to do something because it's, you brought in Andy Kotelnicki. You actually gave him a raise to stick around because he was getting some head coaching possibilities there. And you got to give him the people to coach the weapons. And 0 passes caught by a wide receiver in a college football playoff semifinal game. That's really bad. That's really bad. Just what Moen said, recruit better and develop wide receiver better. Not sure Allar is the answer. Listen, here's my thoughts on Drew Allar. Drew Allar's an excellent quarterback. He's every bit of a 5-star quarterback, but it depends. He's bipolar. He is bipolar.
Which half is it?
Which half do you get? If you get rock star Allar, fantastic. Look at that.
Rockstar Allar would be the third quarterback off the board in this year's draft.
Absolutely. You watch that USC game in the second half, rockstar Allar. You see that interception at the end of the game against Notre Dame? That's subpar, Allar. You don't know who you're going to get. I mean, I've seen this guy throw footballs that are just spot on. I mean, beautiful accuracy, beautiful tight spiral, high arcing, bullets in between, tiny, tiny spaces. Hit a receiver in a window with three guys draping all over him, but and sometimes he just shows up and he'll throw an interception. I don't know.
Look, it's frustrating when those things happen, but much better to have gotten that far in the first playoff than the vast majority of us who are watching those games.
Yeah, no, congratulations to James Franklin. He played for a Big Ten championship, only lost by one score to eventual champion, undefeated Oregon. He got into the playoffs. Now people are going to say, well, he had an easy playoff path. He played SMU. He played Boise State. He played Notre Dame. I don't think any of that is easy. I think any team that's in the playoffs is a decent enough team. So I don't think you could take anything away from James Franklin. But the support staff they have there on the sidelines at Penn State, it's got to get better, especially if you're going to compete in this era. And you're going to have to come up with some money. And I know Penn State has the money. So certainly hope that works out for them. Let's see here. John Drive, 5% more is what Florida State and Clemson will take from the ACC if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, 5% more, it would, it's a rounding error, right? In terms of you get 5% more of whatever $40 million ballpark it. I think that would be very token, but that's technically the bylaws around like having to, on a media rights deal, have to consult and get votes from your members.
Right. And I think it's important. You got to remember, guys, Florida State and Clemson are the ones out front. They filed lawsuits. There's at least two more teams who won out.
100%.
I can just tell you that they did not hire Bill Belichick to get all that publicity to have him coach in the ACC, guys. North Carolina wants out. How they go about it, I don't know. I would have thought they filed a lawsuit already, but they decided not to. Apparently, they've got other motives or means behind the scenes. But yeah, North Carolina wants out, and I'm sure Miami wants out too.
I'm 99.98% sure that is correct. They just are approaching it a different way.
Right. It's just a matter of getting out, especially when there's forces at action to try and keep them all together. When they leave this year or the next, talking about Florida State.
I mean, theoretically, right? But one of two things has to happen. Like, we can talk about it all the time. I would love for them to get out. Like, I would like Florida State to get what they want because that does a lot. Either ESPN has to opt out of their deal, and if they don't, then Florida State needs to win in court. Or some new thing comes together where enough ACC teams do a vote to dissolve, or else they're just in a tough spot. Maybe there's a fourth thing. Like, don't put it past lawyers and administrators to not figure out a new thing that we're not thinking of that could actually work. But barring that, one of those things has to fall. Maybe it falls this week.
Well, the other thing that has to fall is Notre Dame giving notice that they intend to leave the conference agreement. They believe that creates an escape clause, but Notre Dame just made, I believe, $20 million. They get to keep that all to themselves. They have no reason to leave the ACC. If anything, they're going to fight to keep that intact as much as possible.
After the ratings of the bowl game, of the championship game, regardless of what happened in the Orange Bowl, that game is going to have massive ratings. I don't believe that this outcome and Big Ten and the SEC maybe being mad that they didn't have a title game and that they didn't think it would happen. That's why they were okay with it. And now that it has happened, they'll change. Like, I don't know that anybody still has the leverage to get Notre Dame to do it. They have to be shut out of something, not get in when they're like 13th or something like that. To me, like, I'd love for them to have to play by the same rules as everybody else and make a commitment one way or the other somewhere. But I'm not in the school that thinks that this makes it more likely that people take steps to get them out. When the ratings come out of how massive Notre Dame versus Ohio State's going to be, two of the four biggest brands in the title game, they're going to have just as much power as they did.
I understand the argument, but don't you think that would be equal ratings if it was Ohio State versus Alabama?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I don't. I just think because Alabama has been there several times. Notre Dame has a different type of audience in terms of like a national stature. I know Alabama's a national brand. I don't mean that they're not, but there's just a different thing. Like we haven't seen Notre Dame in the shoes in 11 years, but even then, like that team, wasn't, I didn't think they had a chance of winning that game, and they kind of got their butts kicked. But these two brands, I think, it's just it's a good combination, right? Like some teams together over-index when they're together. Ohio State versus Alabama, of course, would be a massive game, but in people's heads, they haven't seen that. They probably thought that they've seen that recently, if they hadn't, right? I can't remember what Ohio State and Alabama have played in the BCS. I'm assuming that they did, but I can't recall offhand.
Yes, in 2000, they've played several times in the.
So it's not as new, right?
Right.
Notre Dame and Ohio State like barely ever play each other, if I'm not mistaken.
We played each other last year.
Historically,
though, it's every 10 to 15 years we usually have Notre Dame on the schedule.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I'm really interested to see how Ohio State and Texas did in the ratings, because I think Texas is probably the biggest brand in the SEC, as much as that pisses off everybody else in the SEC. Shonsky says, I hope they keep the bowls. Also, that's one traditional thing that I hope never changes. And because of these bowls, I believe it keeps the Big Ten and SEC from breaking away. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't think the Big Ten and SEC necessarily want to break away. I think they want to be in a playoff that has access to a G6. But they also are going to want automatic qualifiers.
They want a virtual monopoly, but not one monopoly that makes everybody hate them more and cuts out the country.
Yes, they want an oligopoly, just like
that is correct. That is a better
corporate America. Nathan Campbell says, is UNC Miami and I think Louisville, and I get that from Big 12 Inside. I don't know about Louisville. I can almost guarantee you it's true about North Carolina and the University of Miami.
For the Big 12?
Just wanting out. He's saying he gets that from the channel Big 12 Insider.
Yeah, I think Louisville, if they feel like they have a spot, and they probably would do that. I don't think they're the spark, right? I think that they're they go along the lines, but they might actually, maybe they go first because they have a path. But those other things still have to happen for everybody else, including the ones who haven't sued. Right? Or some new scenario needs to come up that isn't just out of the dreams of the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, I don't know that Louisville is in that camp because I don't think the Big Ten would take Louisville, and I think Kentucky would block Louisville in the SEC. Timothy Green, a longtime supporter. Hey, Mo, and congratulations on going to the national championship. Now all you have to do is finish. And I hope to God they beat Notre Dame's ass. I don't have any monks chanting sound effects, but we'll just have to deal with applause. Thank you, Timothy Green. And that's a great segue into our next discussion. The Cotton Bowl, University of Texas versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. 5 versus 8. What did you think of the game?
I thought that Texas stayed in that game way longer than they should have if Ohio State had played their A game, and that's a credit to the Texas team and Sarkisian for whatever they did to keep that going. There was a couple of moments to me like Ohio State could have really built up that lead and made it not a game. But man, the way to lose that game at the end, I don't know if I can recall like a swing that dramatic that turns a game that was about to be tied into a 14-point swing and a loss that you talk about for ages and cry about for decades.
Buckeye fans can certainly remember a play like that. It was called 85 yards through the heart of the South from Ezekiel Elliott in 2014. And now we have Paul Keels saying it's the 83 yards through the heart of Texas. Captain Jack Sawyer, beautiful strip sack, and a fumble recovery and a run back. A stupid
Man,
score of 83 yards. But what was most impressive, Texas was down on the 1 yard line with 4 downs. And one play call, they got pushed back. They decided to do a pitch, and Caleb Downs is a beast, worth every penny, whatever they paid him. I've heard $3 million. If it was $3 million, he's earned every bit of that this season.
absolutely.
Yeah, knocked them back. They had a 3rd down, didn't go so well for him either. Then it became 4th down and goal, chance to tie, and they were roommates.
Yeah, I wish I could have like a fresh hot take that's different than everybody's already beaten down, but I just don't get that pitch call. I realize how strong Ohio State is up front on a goal line stance, but that's to me all the more reason that trying to make it into 9 yards instead of 1 yard doesn't make sense until like 4th down, maybe 3rd down. I just thought that was a terrible play call. And I understand the logic of, well, we didn't think we could beat them there. But, man, like 9 yards rushing is 9 yards rushing, even if you're starting with the pitch in the back and have a few yards in front of you, let alone someone like Caleb Downs coming there and just doing what he did.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian says if it was blocked correctly, it would have been a touchdown, which to me is one of the greatest sayings of any coach. It's almost like saying, I wouldn't have wrecked my car if I hadn't drove it.
You know, Mo, the first time I heard that excuse for offense, I was playing football, 8 years old, and it was a 42 dive. And I was told that every single play ever run on offense by any offensive team, if done correctly, could score.
Yes, absolutely. I would have nailed a 10, but I had to settle for 5 2s.
Yeah.
Bob Swanger says, Moen, I thought the personal foul in the first half against Ohio State changed momentum. It absolutely did. And, Travion Henderson, that's a guy you wouldn't expect to make a foul like that. Sometimes you just got to let that shit roll off your shoulders. But he more than made up for it at the end of the first half. 75-yard touchdown catch, which was about an 8-yard touchdown catch, and the rest of it was picked up running down the field. I never thought that Texas would have a chance in that ball game from the beginning to the end. Horns down, y'all. Horns down. Again, we brought it up. Ohio State was the good guys. We're still the good guys.
That might be the only thing the SEC did right this year was to not get all bent out of shape when people in SEC schools did the horns down to Texas.
Definitely. But Ohio State are the good guys. I don't know what to do.
It'll pass.
Will OSU be able to pass on Notre Dame? That is how I see the game going. Great secondary from Notre Dame. Texas gave the blueprint on how to stop Jeremiah Smith. But will they be able to stop Emeka Egbuka, G. Scott, Brandon Tate, Ennis? That as much as the receiver room is not stacked at Penn State, it is stacked at Ohio State.
Well, here's a question for you. I know Texas has a very good defense, so I'm not stunned about it, but it was pretty damn surprising how much they eradicated Jeremiah Smith from the field. And I think if Notre Dame can do similar in this upcoming game, how confident do you feel down? To me, Ennis has been a disappointment. I followed him really closely because he was Jeremiah Smith before Jeremiah Smith was really Jeremiah Smith in terms of Miami, Ohio State receiver recruiting battles, which Miami almost always loses with your wide receivers coach there. But I don't know, what was your take or the community's take about, why didn't Chip Kelly figure out a way to scheme him open? with what was going on? Was he just out on an off day after talking up the week before and delivering?
I think they were actually very pleased to see Jeremiah Smith's game planned against. It allowed them to open up other receivers like Gee Scott, Ibuka, Tate, we mentioned. As to Brandon Ennis, you really can't. I don't want to put the for sale sign on him just yet. Listen, he's had to sit behind some pretty damn good receivers. Harrison Jr., Ibuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba. These are some
guys.
Got
to be burning him though that he's sitting
I'm
behind
sure
somebody. He not that Jeremiah Smith hasn't deserved it, but I'm sure I just wonder what his take is on that not having his moment the same way. Like,
well, we'll get to see this.
Talent's one thing.
This season coming up because Ibuka's gone. I believe G. Scott is gone. So that'll open up a lot more opportunities for some of the young receivers in the room. But hey, listen, it's a tough route. Jamison Williams had to leave Ohio State, go to Alabama to become a Heisman Trophy winner. It's a tough room. It's if you're coming to Ohio State, if you're getting prospected to come to Ohio State, you got to understand you're going to be sitting behind some dudes. There's always some better dudes. So I think Ohio State will be able to pass on Notre Dame. What question I have is how well they will run against Notre Dame and how well the pass rush gets to Riley Leonard.
Moan, it does what Ohio State has done so far. Obviously, if they win the title, they win the title, and that immunizes Ryan Day for a while, right? But if Ohio State loses somehow to Notre Dame, which I don't expect, but if they do, does that mean what kind of immunity has he bought so far with the fever swamp that sprung up after Michigan in terms of 2025? Like everyone said, he has to beat Michigan or he has to win the national title. Then that changed because they lost to Michigan and then had two really super impressive games and then this one. What is the 2025 outlook for Ryan Day should somehow Notre Dame pull off the upset?
I will say this. Ryan Day has had some monkeys on his back at Ohio State. One of them was SEC teams. So far in these playoffs, he's beat Tennessee and Texas. He now has 2 wins over SEC teams. The other one, he had not had a win over Oregon. He lost to them in an out-of-conference game on C.J. Stroud's first year. He lost to them on an in-conference game this year at Autzen Stadium by 1 point. He absolutely demolished the Oregon Ducks. I think after the Oregon game, he had already given himself some immunization. After the Texas game, I think it just got stronger. I think as long as they don't put like he would absolutely have to get really embarrassed in the national championship game. 77-0 type of embarrassment, like TCU versus Georgia type embarrassment, to get rid of the goodwill that he's been able to make in this postseason. So we'll see. Again, I'm not taking any game for granted. There were several Ohio State fans earlier this week. Oh, we're going to blow the lid off Texas. Didn't happen. I don't want to take away from anybody. Notre Dame's been good enough to make the championship game. So, I mean, they beat Penn State. They beat Indiana. They've won their games too. So I don't want to beat Georgia. I don't want to take anything away from Notre Dame. And I know Ryan Day and the coaching staff isn't.
And if Notre Dame wins, how soon do they send the transitive national championship to Northern Illinois?
Well, now that they're in the Mountain West, they won't have to. That negates transitive properties because they're no longer in the MAC or after next year. But, everybody loses head scratchers. They lost to Northern Illinois at home. Ohio State lost to Michigan at home. I mean, yeah. Again, Ohio State's was a rivalry game. I don't know why they lost to Northern Illinois. Timothy Green says, I never thought that Texas would have a chance in that ball game. From the beginning to the end, horns down, y'all, horns down. I think I read that already, but it says horns down, so I'll read it again. Ghoster, good to see you, Ghoster. Haven't seen you around here before. If you would, please consider giving us a like and a subscribe. That would be much appreciated. OSU has the number one red zone defense in the nation, 12 plus stops over the season. If Sark pulled it off, he's a genius. If he ran it and failed, he's in the same spot. I hear you, but I think it would be less so. The pitch that loses you 9 yards versus getting stuffed on the one.
Yeah.
I think you would get a little more leeway.
And I can't remember, so this could be wrong, but wasn't the pitch to like the short side of the field too?
It absolutely was.
Yeah, I just don't think that's I can almost justify it to the wide side, but still. They didn't really have a speed advantage.
Tempest, OHIO for the win, national champions. Let's hope so, Tempest. Let's hope so. And let's hope this quarterback that Iowa brought in can actually do some stuff.
After he's got that's a challenging one there because he's got a surgery that's going to keep him sidelined to June. I mean, Miami has the same thing with Carson Beck, but that's looking more like April, just a little bit more off-season time to get acclimated to your receivers. I mean, assuming Iowa actually wants to have like a receiving game.
By the way, what figure did you hear on Carson Beck?
I heard not 4 million.
I heard 3.
Yep.
I heard 3.
I heard 2.5 to 3. Whether there is more in incentives or as NIL value goes. But yeah, I've heard from like D-Money, who runs Kane's Insight, who also is really tied to the collective, had it on his show. That's, that it was definitely not 4 and that it was lower than that. And I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, right? Because if you want to clown on Miami because you think it's too much money, all you're still really doing is broadcasting to all the players that Miami has money.
Listen, the 3 highest paid roster okay, I'll let you play this out, Rock. Do you know who the 3 highest paid rosters were this year in college football?
My understanding is you guys, Oregon, and I don't know that I know who the third one is. I wanted to take a guess at like Texas or Texas A&M, but that's just because I'm assuming 2 of the biggest, richest programs in the country have it.
According to the chart that I saw, Oregon was number 1, Texas was number 2, Ohio State was number 3. In all fairness, they weren't far off. So it's not like other people aren't out there spending money. It's if this has shown you anything, this playoff has shown you anything, you're basically going to have to buy your way to the top now. I'm sure you're going to get some feel-good stories that'll come in there from time to time, but that's not going to be the norm. That's going to be the exception to the rule.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's important, all the buying, right, is I almost guarantee that Cam Ward's non-official 1.6 million that was referenced in the Athletics, so that's just the number I'm going off of, as was the 3. The Adidas, Bose, and a couple of other deals are not part of that. They're not part of the Kings Collective. They're not, in the future, they wouldn't have been part of the revenue sharing, right? This is all pre-revenue sharing. And those deals probably collectively, just based off of like my knowledge of that world, have a definite potential to have been in the 7 figures collectively to add on to whatever he got from Miami Collective.
Nathan Campbell says, I think these ACC teams will end up in the Big 12. Louisville, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Syracuse, UConn, Gonzaga. UConn and Gonzaga are not ACC teams. UConn, I think, is the most likely one there. Gonzaga, I think, is out. I don't think they want basketball-only members.
Yeah, that would be a very short stay in the pack, whatever number it is, for Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think Gonzaga had their run on it, and the answer was no. Shonsky says, I actually think the SEC is already getting sick of Texas toxicity. I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about the fans literally putting garbage all over the field and forcing a flag to be picked up?
Yeah, I bet you that the ranking of who's the most toxic program in the SEC would have massively different results from SEC member voters and their fan bases and everybody outside of the SEC, because Texas wouldn't even be on my list.
Stormy Cyclone says, shout out to all the firefighters in the LA area.
Man, those guys have been.
Give them a round of applause, and that's not nearly enough.
Yeah, those guys have been and gals have been working tirelessly for 5 full days now, and they've gotten some reinforcements from like 6 or 7 states, Canada, Mexico, Australia, even. But freaking hard job. I think last count I heard was like between the few fires, there's 6,000 firefighters on the ground in LA right now.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to donate, visit redcross.org, and you can actually stipulate where 100% of your donation will go to help those affected by the Los Angeles and greater Los Angeles fires. I highly recommend that you do that if you can afford to.
Yeah, if you want to see a good story about things, just that has a football tie-in, just Google the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl turned into a spontaneous, everybody bringing stuff to the Rose Bowl for anyone, especially in the Eaton Fire, which is close to the Rose Bowl. Smoke was coming over there, everything from water to diapers to clothes, just like a spontaneous, not organized thing that turned into basically a free flea market for everybody who was impacted.
Shonsky says, in my opinion, most SEC teams and fans cheering for Ohio State, it would have killed them to let newcomer win it all. Ohio State made sure against Oregon. Oregon didn't win a national championship, but they did come in and win a conference championship, and you can't take that away from them.
I mean, we do have 2 of the biggest fan bases in the country, combined with 2 of the most polarizing brands in the country in the game. There's a lot of people who are in my boat of pox on both houses, but somebody's going to have to win. So let me figure out how to go about it. And I know, like, even in the
let's put it this way: how many national championships has Ohio State denied you?
It's just recency, right? And it's recency, and it's also we don't generally. I'm sure there are like offers go all over the place, but on the recruiting trail, Miami, Ohio State butt heads more than Miami and Notre Dame do. So like there's the fans who are younger who didn't grow up in the Notre Dame was a yearly rivalry, and then they canceled the series and didn't necessarily like being called convicts for a decade before you just like grin and bear it. Don't have necessarily the same feeling, you know. My only mission was I just wanted the SEC to not make it to the finals. Now I just want to see a good game that just works with whatever bet I put down.
By the way, programming note while we're on the topic, tomorrow at 9 a.m. on the College Football Mafia channel, new episode of Just the Facts with Dan Gygax. He will tell a very personal and heartbreaking story about the 1988 national championship game that Notre Dame won. So I've got to preview it. I think it's pretty great. He brings out a little time capsule souvenir that I think West Virginia fans will get a kick out of. So definitely check it out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
And in a replay era, Notre Dame wouldn't even have been there because beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Somehow, I don't know how that call went against Miami at Notre Dame. Not sure.
Was it me? It seemed like OSU gave up running the ball in the second half. Well, they did, but they got stuck. They got stuffed quite a few times, and I think once that happened, I think the best call you saw was the 4th and 2. They had stuffed that. If he had handed it off, the running back was stuffed for a loss. But Will Howard got ahead of it, got the first down, got himself so excited that the turf monster got him. So we'll see how they do against Notre Dame. Illini Ted. Good to see you, Illini Ted. I know you're doing well. Sorry if asked, but do you think the conferences will make it harder for Notre Dame to make the playoff in the future? I know there is a lot of chatter that they get to keep all that CFP money for themselves. We talked about it briefly on the Friday show. My thoughts are continue to allow them access, but give them 1/16th average like the schools and other conferences get. I think that would be the most fair way to do this. What do you think, Rock?
Well, isn't it already set that in the next round at 2026 that the dollar amounts are changing?
It is, and it's of the belief that, at least according to the SEC and Big Ten, that they have the most control over it. If those two conferences come together and agree on a format change, that would be They have the weighted votes, basically. They
Yeah,
control
but
58%.
I thought for some reason that we, at some point that it, or maybe it was just because it was put out there, and I could be juxtaposing things because I went into like it's actual football season mode for several months and forgot certain numbers. But I thought there was a zone where Big Ten and SEC schools were getting like $20 million in the next round of playoffs if they went all the way, and a school like ACC and Notre Dame were like more in like the 13 million zone or something like that.
You might be right. I think you actually are right. I would have to go back and look at it, but I do know that even at 13 million, the main quandary is that Notre Dame gets to keep all that money.
Right.
They're an independent, whereas Ohio State, they're going to make 20 million. Of that 20 million, they're basically going to get to keep 2 to 3 million of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If I'm not mistaken, one of the things the ACC did do is that even if there's a disparity between what Big Ten and ACC we get in the playoffs in the future, the way that the split happens in the ACC, there is a success thing that they aren't going to just get like 1/17.
Yep. We'll see, Ted. 2026. That's a big question. We'll see.
I'd be worried if I was Purdue in terms of assuming getting 1/16 of stuff from like the finals. If a team makes it, maybe like in earlier stages, it balances out after like people contribute their 1.2 million for making it to the Gasparilla Bowl or whatever.
Let's put it this way, Illini Ted. It's a unit to make any changes for next season. It's unanimity, and that includes Notre Dame in 2026. If the SEC and Big Ten decide they're going to do something together, Notre Dame is kind of shit out of luck on that. But there are learned men who disagree with me. Bob Swanger says that wouldn't surprise me. Alana Ted says congrats to Mike Vrabel getting the Patriots job. Any word if Dion is still being discussed for the Raiders? The Bears will probably end up with the interim they had when they screw this up. Okay, well, we'll talk about it. It's a college football story. What do you think about the rumors of Deion Sanders possibly going to the Las Vegas Raiders? You think it's real, or do you think this is just another attempt to get more money out of the University of Colorado?
I think it's potentially real. Honestly, like the negotiating thing. I know people leverage that kind of situation. I understand that, but we all thought like months ago that if he could get a chance to coach his son somewhere, and I don't know that the Raiders are because they screwed up by picking things, but who knows? Maybe they'll be Shador could be the latest version of Eli Manning, demanding how they get to the team they want to and away from the others. But I think it's real. I do. For whatever reason, I think that that's very possible. I don't think I would have thought it was possible before everybody approved and Brady was like the minority owner. But I think the glitz of Vegas and that situation, and anyone who thinks, well, he committed, he said this, he's going to sign a number one quarterback. Like I'm old enough to remember, thinking we had a coach locked up for years, and next thing I know, he was coaching the Browns, and didn't get a chance to coach the 2001 Miami Hurricanes to a national title, and that was Butch Davis. And this is a far more glamorous, big celebrity kind of person with Deion Sanders than a coach like that was.
Yeah, and I put this out on Twitter, and I had a bunch of Big 12 fans strike back at me. Again, I think the Big 12 Conference needs to put something forward to help Colorado keep Deion Sanders. Everybody screamed at me, no, screw Colorado, screw Deion Sanders, et cetera, et cetera. Go back and look at the Wild Ute University where he broke down the ratings that Colorado pulls in for the Big 12. Those numbers, those are going to be important when the valuations come up for the Big 12 in 2030, 2031, guys. If Deion Sanders is still there through that, he's going to bring up that number to get the Big 12 more money. If he's not there and those Colorado numbers crater to what the other average of the Big 12 is, the valuations are not going to be very good for you in 2030, 2031.
Yeah, I mean, there's really just like one team on the top tier in the Big 12. And, there's a few that you could group that way, but there's a marked separation between Colorado and number two.
It is massive. It is massive, guys. Go watch the Wild Ute University video. Greg Pflugar's in the house. Disappointment in Badger country. Packer country should create another national holiday. Greg apparently dropped in just to take a shot at everybody from Wisconsin.
I'm glad he's taking a shot at Wisconsin and not throwing daggers my way.
Yeah, that's absolutely not our opinion here on Mowing After Dark. We like Wisconsin. We enjoy their cheese products, their beer, their brats are especially delicious. So we like Wisconsin here. It's just this is all Greg Pflugar, a resident of Minnesota, who is putting this hate out there. So
I have
don't
nothing to
blame
say
us.
about Wisconsin right now.
Blame Greg Pflugar. Blame the cooler. Buying your way in is a big risk, in my opinion. A full locker room full of NIL comparison could get really ugly fast. I don't disagree with you, Shonsky. I think you need a blend of both. You need homegrown talent, but I mean, it's NIL has become free agency. If you've got a hole that needs plugged right away, NIL is the way to get there.
I mean, how is that any different than any NFL locker room?
Yeah,
other than it's new. Right? Like you got 50 guys on a 53-man roster making, who can be cut when they get a toe hurt. So,
yeah. If you look at it from Ohio State's point of view, look, they needed a safety. They needed a quarterback. They could have tried to bring on a young safety. They could have started one of their freshman quarterback. They could have started Devin Brown. Devin Brown has such a history of injury. In my opinion, I think that they would have been on to a freshman quarterback before long. So, again, I think you need to do both. Like you look at Ohio State, you've got a lot of kids that stayed put for the money. Jack Sawyer definitely wants a national championship. I don't think he was there just for the money. JTT, I think he wanted to win a national championship. You got Travion Henderson coming along. You got Quinshawn Judkins, who came over from Ole Miss. I think you need a blend of both. Marcus Williams says, I hate Ohio, but damn, I hate Notre Dame. So given we own Ohio soft, they can get a natty because they damn sure can't beat Michigan. And he says the GB word. Marcus, I've tried to explain this to you multiple times. Ohio is the university in Athens. Their mascot is the Bobcats. I don't know why this is so confusing for you. But you own Ohio soft for the last 4 years. I seem to recall a 15-year period before that with such venerable names as Rich Rodriguez, Lloyd Carr, the fat guy Brady Hoke. So I mean, let's put things into perspective. You guys have won 4 years in a row. You did not. You haven't dominated us the way we dominated you in the aughts. Marcus Williams says at least it'll be another title for the Big Ten, and if they win, they'll have a championship more recently than Michigan. How about that? Tony Lawson, Green Bay loses. It's a great day to be an American. Okay. I can't wait. Just you guys are going to show up here next Sunday if Minnesota loses, right? I just want to know. Rob Ellen, fingers crossed for an OSU win and an end zone dance by Moen. I will do the Neutron dance. Ohio State fans will get that reference.
Yeah, we need to see that dance on a YouTube short on like immediately after the game. Should that go down?
Really, Oregon, Washington, USC are still Pac-12 teams. The narrative is different now. Okay.
Texas is a Big 12 team then.
By the way, I also want to point out Oregon State fans and Washington State fans touting that they each get $50 million from the college football playoff this year. Congratulations to you. Go ahead and pay the Mountain West the money you owe them instead of trying to duck them with a lawsuit. You screamed bloody murder when everybody else was trying to leave you behind, that you owned it all and you sued them and et cetera, et cetera. You owe the Mountain West $55 million for each one of those schools you took.
Well, if you have that money coming in and you're still going to sue the Mountain West, there's maybe one school that like maybe shouldn't have lost their head coach to Wake Forest.
Yeah, I mean, it just did. Listen, you can't be a saint on Sunday and then a sinner on Monday, guys. I would like to congratulate the West Virginia Mountaineers tonight for going on the road and beating the Colorado Buffaloes in basketball with a very short roster. I must say, let's go Mountaineers. Congratulations to the Mountaineers basketball team. It gives you something to look forward to.
After you take a shot at his once again new but former head coach, Rich Rodriguez.
Hey, listen, Rich Rodriguez was a fantastic coach at Michigan. Can't say enough good things about the guy. Rock, that's a per term initial payment. Then the money is split evenly by how far each team gets in the playoffs.
Thank you for that's what I was alluding to, and you clarified it. That said, I believe the way the ACC is structured internally, if a team keeps advancing, they're not taking that money per round and splitting it 100% equally among all the members, which I think the Big Ten is closer to doing. Moan, you would know better. I don't want to speak for it because you're in the midst of it with whatever Ohio State's earning per week. Are they going to get, when it all said and done, is all the money that Ohio State's bringing in going into the overall Big Ten kitty, and then just
they get to keep a little extra.
Costs?
They keep a little extra as a performance bonus, but most of it, the lion's share, will be going to the Big Ten pot to be divvied up among all our players. So, and that's the way it is. On Wisconsin, when was the last time the Vikings won a Super Bowl? Oh, that's right. They haven't.
Are you missing an O? I thought it was 4. Is it just 3?
I think it's just 3. We'll see here in a second. 3. It was 3 O's, and that's Ryan Willie serving the Minnesota Vikings, who have been to many a Super Bowl and never won one.
Oh, see, I was alluding to like having the Vikings lost 4 Super Bowls. Meaning they were
Oh, you're right. Okay, I got you.
I don't know which one it was. It could be Fluke. It could be our friend Greg, and the Sounder. So like it works either way. It just wasn't, and I might be wrong on the count for Minnesota because it's been a while.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's going to take them to the mountaintop this year, though. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have a feeling it's not.
It probably is true because I'm a Jets fan, and that would be just poetic justice number 97 in my lifetime.
Timothy Green says, hello, Daniel. I think if Major Harris would not have dislocated his shoulder, we would have possibly won that game. Actually, I think we would have won that game. Again, tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. If I haven't set that as a premiere yet, I will set that as a premiere for Daniel's video covering the 1988 National Championship game. Stronsky says, I think it's up to Dion. By the way, even though he played an 0-0-0 for Ryan, I'm going to go and give him another sounder.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
There you go, brother. If Dion leaves, that roster about to be raided. That roster is already being bombarded. Trust me. There are people out there doing negative recruiting against Colorado at this very moment.
Yes, they are. And also, I forgot to mention this when Illini Ted asked about his Bears. There's still hope for your Bears, man. The Jets are still trying to find a coach, too. So there is somebody who could potentially blow it more than the Bears. So you might luck out.
Stormy Cyclone says, Greg and Cheese don't get along, at least on meat. Yeah, I have a theory on that. I think Greg's a communist spy. I'm still working.
He's pure Italian deep down, and he doesn't know it because it's okay on chicken Parmesan. I learned that and put it to memory recently.
Yes. Just not burger. The man doesn't like beef. He doesn't like cheese. I think he's a communist spy. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. All right, here. We're winding down, guys. I'm going to pull up a couple more, and then we're going to bounce out of here. Contracts and trades are why it works for the NFL. Portal is way different. But it's the same philosophy, Shonsky. It's plugging holes.
Everyone's on a 1-year contract, essentially, right? Is really what it comes down to. And some people make $1.5 million, and some people get $30,000, or not even that much.
Shonsky says, yes, Texas and Oklahoma are still Big 12 teams. Don't tell that to anybody in the Big 12. CMB 7686 CFB fan. Guys, would it be considered failure if Ohio State gets beat next Monday? I don't think it would be failure. I mean, obviously, you want to win, but the fact that they've got, they have 3 goals at Ohio State: beat that team up north, win the Big Ten championship, win a national championship. They failed at 2, but I think the fact they've done what they've done to get to goal number 3, I think that's enough for maybe not to be a failure, but not to be an abject failure.
I think it's harder to do the same comparisons to the past when after trying to win your championship game, or 20 years ago not even having the championship game, you're talking about, can you win one more game? Ohio State's in the position of having to try to have won, 4 more games? 3 more games. I can't even keep track anymore. Total in the playoff.
Let's see here. Illini Ted says, just remember, Mo, in this coming season is the first chance Brett and the Illini have to put up 52 on the Buckeyes. It's already been written on the video game. I forgot about that, but congratulations to Bert. Bert did take the Illini to a bowl win over the hottest team in the country, the South Carolina Gamecocks.
And he was a good troll about it. I didn't know he was that entertaining.
The Evil Badger with the pushback. Love it. Thanks, Ryan. We have got a full-blown Great Lakes war going on here. Ryan Willie brings back 0-4. The Vikings can ship J.J. McCarthy to the Chargers. I don't think Harbaugh wants him after he's got Justin Herbert. I don't think there's any comparison there.
Justin Herbert had a pretty terrible game.
He did. He had a terrible game, but he also had a decent season. So
yeah, for sure.
He didn't have a Joe Burrow season, but I mean, everybody claiming MVP. We all know Joe Burrow's the most valuable player in the NFL. Colorado has an NIL locker room with contracts, and schools are stealing other schools' best players. They should be locked into contracts, so they can't do that. I understand the stupid concept, but it is different. Well, it is different. But listen, until collective bargaining comes along, Shonsky, there's really nothing you can do. These are still, according to them, our favorite sound effect. Come on, Cartman. Say the words.
Student athletes. Oh, that is brilliant, sir.
These are still student athletes, and you cannot lock them into contracts.
If your school is not advocating for collective bargaining, they can't complain about the opposite. Like, it's just what it is.
Yes. I can tell you a story about a young quarterback who came to his school and received a Ford F-150 Raptor from a dealership as part of an NIL deal. He left that school, and another car dealership in another state basically ended up having to buy that F-150 Raptor and then some because of the contract between that young man and that car dealership. As for schools, signing contracts is just not a possibility.
And unfortunately, that young man returned to a state that had an over supply of car dealerships for some reason, historically.
Yes, and it was there was quite a price hike put on that Ford F-150 Raptor, I am sure. Tony Lawson reminds us the Vikings have lost the last 6 NFC title games they have played in. Very sad. Unless you were the teams playing them or fans of the teams playing them. We'll end this with Timothy Green, and then we're taking off for the night. Timothy Green says, congratulations on another great show, guys. Very well done as usual. Thank you, Timothy Green. Much appreciated, sir. We'll get to some programming notes before we do the final goodbyes here. Programming note, tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll push it again. Just the Facts with Dan Gygax, 9 a.m. release. Check that out. I'm going to set that as a premiere tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, the Big Ten Mafia show with myself, Becky Go Huskies and Sergeant Pickles. And then on Tuesday at 8 p.m., Nate will be joined by Rec Talks, the great Georgia Tech creator.
I love Rec Talk.
And
He's
yes,
freaking
I had to do
hysterical.
that. We had to do that simply because Georgia Tech.
I like Rec Talk so much that when he doesn't even know that I'm lurking and he dunks on Miami, I don't even hold it against him.
There you go. He will be joining him at 8 p.m. Oh, we got a super chat that rolled in here. Cincinnati comes to Green Bay next season. Hopefully it's like same weekend as the Ohio State versus Wisconsin game. Well, hopefully we have a defense by then. That would be nice. I asked Santa for one, and I doubt that Dirk Tobin or Mike Brown's going to give me one, but, they'll draft another terrible player and then just keep pushing them, hoping that they're going to make something of themselves. But thank you for the super chat, Ron Willie. It is much appreciated. Let's give you some milk.
He needs some milk. He needs some milk.
There you go. You need some milk. You're in the land of dairy. Enjoy a tall, cold glass of whole D for me. For myself, Rock, you have anything you want to say on the way out?
Yeah, man. Just check out all the new stuff that the guys on the network are putting out. Give us some feedback, share it around. Wild Youth's been putting out a lot of stuff. Daniel, there's more to come from these guys. So give us the feedback, do some comments, help the channel out. That would be great. And without getting into politics or anything, not everything in LA that's on fire is some celebrity's home. A lot of people live in like 40 by 80 square lot houses, and those are all gone. Think of Lahaina times 3. That's what's going on in reality. So take that in mind, and then you could do, and if it's just a prayer, is well appreciated.
Absolutely. And send up a prayer for protection of all the first responders out there. We've got firefighters from all different states and all different countries down there helping assist the folks in Los Angeles. I will say it again. If you've got the ability and would like to make a donation, redcross.org. You can earmark it to go towards the LA efforts. A lot of people, like Rock said, have lost their homes, lost their businesses, lost everything dear to them, but they kept a hold of their lives, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So if you've got the ability, I would strongly consider that you go out there and give a donation. It would be much appreciated. For myself and Rock and Rant, thank you all. We will see you next Sunday.